Hey guys, welcome back to your Lake Fork Guide, another episode of the Guides Network, where we go in depth on different techniques and tactics to help you catch big bass, more in depth than you'll find anywhere else. You know, it's the summertime, guys. Fish are starting to group up offshore. It's a great time of year. You can catch a bunch of big fish in a hurry. Some might say it's their favorite time of year because you can't have that home run scenario where you catch big fish cast after cast. One of the most effective baits at catching big fish and catching a lot of fish during the summertime is big plastic worms. And my favorite way to fish big plastic worms is on a big shaky head. So today we're gonna break it down. Alright guys, before we get into today's instructional, please do take a moment when we get done with this video to go check out our awesome selection of amphibia eye gear. Just top-notch eye gear, in my opinion, the best on the market. They float, so when you drop them in the lake, you don't have to just throw away a $200 bill. Oh yeah, and these cost less than that anyway. So go check out amphibia eye gear, link below at yourlakeforkguide.com. Alright, let's talk about what I'm using for big worm fishing, big shaky head fishing during the summertime. First thing, most important thing that you need to have, these are the two most important things you got to have right here. 6 cents divine shaky head in the 5/8 ounce. Now I'm going to tell you why this one is the one you need to have. Simply put, it's the hook. They have a giant 7/0 heavy gauge wire hook. That's very important when you're fishing these lakes that have a lot of cover in the water, just like Lake Fork does. When you throw out there and you hook a big fish, you want to be able to control that fish. You want to be able to bring that fish up, horse him to the boat, get him in the net as fast as possible, or maybe boat flip him, if you know what I'm saying. Either way, you need that big hook. And this has the biggest hook that I found in any 5/8 or 3/4 ounce shaky head. That's the biggest one. That's why this is my favorite one. And if you go to 6centsfishing.com, which is linked below, and you make an order there, be sure you punch in the code Your Lake Fork Guide. You'll get a 10% discount on all orders. Now, this worm right here is my favorite, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm very biased about this worm. This is the smashtech magnum crawler. I've been involved with this worm from day one. When this worm came out, I actually kind of got to introduce this worm to the world with Heath Taylor last summer. It's a special worm. It's a little different than most of the ones that you'll find on the market. What it is, it's an 8-point-something-inch straight-tail worm, which that doesn't sound big. You think 8-inch worm, oh, I fish 8. There's no ribbon tail on these straight-tail worms though, guys. If you think of a normal ribbon tail worm, like a 12-inch worm would have a ribbon tail this far and it would curl up. So that's a pretty big doggone worm when you see it in person. The big thing about this worm that makes it so effective to me is it has no salt. And with it having no salt, the advantage of this bait is how slow you can go. With no salt, that worm will continue to stand up on the bottom. You know, most of your straight tail worms like this are gonna have some salt in them. And when they hit the bottom, they're gonna fall to the bottom and then they're gonna kind of slowly lay over. That's what they do when they have salt in them. With no salt, that worm will hit the bottom, continue to stand up, and that tail will just kind of sit there and wave at them a little bit with the wind current and the movement in the water. It just slowly teases them while it sits dead still. Therefore, you can fish this bait so much slower. And these pressured fish on lakes like Lake Fork that see a lot of baits, if you can keep that bait in their face that much longer and keep it moving without moving it forward, a lot of times that's going to get those fish to bite when nothing else will. As far as colors go, there's kind of a few base colors. I like greens. I throw both the green pumpkin, which is a pretty dark green pumpkin. I also throw watermelon seed. If the water's really, really clear, that's absolutely my favorite color. Now, as we get hotter and hotter in the summer, there's something about red as we get on into the summer, guys. As the weather gets hotter, I definitely like some red worms. Plum apple is probably my favorite color. Red shad is my second favorite color as we get on into the dog days of summer. So the smashtech magnum crawler, that's the worm you want. The 6 cents divine shaky head, that's the shaky head you want. Now, if you're like me, This might be the smashtech magnum crawler, but in my heart, this will always be big perm. I mean big worm. If you don't get that reference, sorry for your bad luck. All right, now let's talk about the setup we got it on. One thing that's important, you want a high-speed reel. You want to move this bait, and we'll show you how later. You want to move this bait with your rod. You're never going to move it with the reel handle. Therefore, you want high-speed gear ratio reel to pick up the slack when that fish bites, to catch up to that fish when he makes a hard run at the boat, anything like that. You want as high-speed gear ratio as you can get on there. The one I'm throwing on is the Lose Hyper Mag, which... boys, this is like smooth as butter. If you want to go out and spoil yourself and buy one of the best reels on the market, I highly recommend the Lose Hyper Mag. If you're a little bit more of a budget, you want the most bang for your buck, I really like the Lose Tournament MB in that scenario. But this particular model is a 7:5 gear ratio. Like I said, high speed to pick up that slack. Now the rod I'm throwing it on, basically you want a big rod. It can be a 7.6 heavy, it can be, this one right here is a 7.5 extra heavy. I even throw it sometimes on the 7.2 extra heavy. I prefer the 7.5 because the 7.5 has a longer handle. When you got that bait way out there and you want to set the hook, I want a longer handle to kind of brace that handle right here when I'm setting the hook. 20-pound fluorocarbon is my line of choice whenever I'm throwing a big shaky head. Now, as far as the types of areas that you're going to fish, it's pretty limitless. Any obvious offshore structure, points, humps, road beds, pond dams, all that stuff, the big shaky head can work very effectively on. The big key is to have a hard, rough, clean bottom, whether it's clay, whether it's some type of gravel or rock, whether it's a shell bed, whatever it may be, you got to find that hard, clean bottom section of that offshore structure. That's a big deal. And more so than anything, let your electronics guide you. Don't get so stuck on fishing one particular spot on a piece of structure. Now I will grant you, there are spots on these offshore structures that fish tend to gather on for a reason. And mostly it's bottom content or the structure, the elevation change drops off sharp or something like that. There'll be a spot they tend to congregate on. But man, these fish, they got a small brain. And they do things for no reason sometimes. So rely on your electronics if you have them, and locate those schools of fish with your electronics. And really, the area that you want to fish this bait in is the area that the fish are sitting in. So wherever you locate the school of fish, just don't be scared to go out there and throw old big perm out there on that shaky head. And we do have some upcoming videos to try and help you guys locate some of these schools of fish offshore. We're definitely going to try to focus on a lot of electronic stuff this summer. Really want to get in depth with you guys, so stay tuned to the channel. Subscribe down below. Click the subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that bell also. Turn notifications on so it'll notify you every time I make a new video, and you can be sure and catch those electronics videos as they come throughout the summer. All right, now I'm gonna get up and show you guys how to retrieve this bait. It's a really simple deal to retrieve. There's not much to it. You're dragging it, letting it stand up. Couple little tricks on how to position your rod, couple little tricks on how to set the hook and how to fight the fish. So I'm gonna get up right now, try to show you guys how we do that. So I position my boat off the side of a structure. I have a ridge line that runs out here, right here. It's got a hard top on bottom, got some rock, got some stumps, some different stuff on top of this ridge behind me here. So what I'm gonna do, the first thing that's important on how to fish this bait is to make a long cast. Anytime you're fishing deep water, I think long cast, as long a cast as possible, is very important. Reason being, you want to get that bait out there, give it a chance to get way down on the bottom, and present that bait to the school and keep it in the school as long as possible. And you can't do that without making a long cast. So first thing I'm gonna do, it's pretty easy when you got one of these Lose Hyper Mags, but I'm just gonna rear back and throw it as far as I can. All right, so we've got it a long ways out there. Now you might want to strip a little line to ensure that that bait falls straight vertically down and doesn't pendulum back to you. If you throw that bait out there, as soon as it hits the water, you close your reel, click your button. If that line's tight, that worm's going to start to fall, and that line's going to get tight, and it's going to start swinging back towards you. And you definitely don't want that, because that can cause you to fall in the middle of the school or even in front of the school sometimes and miss the opportunity to present your bait to those fish. Now, a couple different ways of dragging this, and both are okay. If the wind's, like today, the wind's blowing a little bit, but it's not blowing too bad, you can hold your rod up and simply drag like this. And this is, you can feel a lot this way, and this is good. Now, one thing is, if you're dragging the worm and it's falling downhill, if you drag up, you're going to lose contact with the bottom a lot. You want to try and stay contact with the bottom. So if you're dragging on a flat surface or dragging uphill, then dragging with your rod up is perfectly fine. Basically, you want to try to feel that shaky head just inch along. You want to drag it very, very very slow, if you know what I'm saying. We're barely inching this thing along. You have to fish it really almost painfully slow. Now the next way to do it is, if the wind's blowing really hard, this will help you because this will get your line down close to the water. It'll help you stay in contact with your bait if you're coming downhill. I'll point my rod to the side, and you can do it to the left side or the right side. You can go this way. I'm simply not going this way because now my line's hitting the back of the boat. But you just want to point your rod down near the water and just drag the bait. That's all we're doing, just dragging. Every once in a while, if it gets caught on something, or if you just want to add a little action, just give it a couple snaps. If you want to add a little action, just give it a couple snaps right there, and it'll kind of hop along the bottom. If it gets snagged a little bit on a piece of gravel or clay, or maybe a little piece of wood down there, you can do that as well. And just keep dragging. One thing that's going to happen when you're dragging a bait in a lake that has a lot of heavy cover is you're going to get hung up. Like, you're going to get hung up. It's part of the equation. What you want to do when your bait gets hung up, you feel it hung up. Okay, so let's say my bait's hung up right now. Okay, I'm going to pull a little bit and feel if it won't come loose. I'm not going to really pull very hard. I'm going to simply turn, change the angle of my rod to as high as possible, put light pressure on it, and then shake a little bit. Just shake it. Lift it up and just shake it. So as I lift it up and I just shake it. Now, if that doesn't get it, here's the deal, guys. When that bait gets wedged, when you're dragging it, 100% of the time, it's not the hook hung. The head of the bait is simply caught in a groove somewhere. It's caught in a groove of rock. It's caught in where a branch comes off a tree. It's caught in a split in a root system. It's just caught in a V. So I have a little trick I like to do, and all I'm trying to do is make the head roll. I'm not trying to slingshot and bounce the bait out of there, not trying to do anything like that. All I'm trying to do, I'm going to pluck this line, and all I'm trying to do is make the head shift positions so that it can roll out of the groove that it's caught in. So what I'll do is, okay, my bait's hung right here. I'll actually take some slack out of my line, grab the rod just like this, and with slack in my line is not tight, I'm just going to simply start plucking. Start plucking. That's all we're going to do, just pluck, 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 pluck. And that will cause that head to roll around, then you grab the line and pull. And it comes right out. And you'll be able to get that out most of the time. If you don't put a lot of pressure, don't really bury that bait, the head of that bait into whatever it's snagged on, if you'll just roll that head around, you can get that bait to come to you most of the time. We talked about a 7/0 hook. That is a very important part of this. It allows me to manhandle these big giant fish, allows me to pull on them as hard as I want, boat flip them if I want to, get them to the net right now on days when I have a partner. One thing though about fishing a 7/0 hook is you better swing this hammer. 7.5 extra heavy rod, that's going to help me drive it home. But if I'm fishing right now and I get a bite, I want to drop my rod tip, slowly reel up all my slack, there's still weight there, and I want to swing it as absolutely hard as I can. I mean, step back, turn those hips, and try to rip his lips off. I tell customers all the time, if you bring me back just lips, the trip is free. I've never given up a free trip. So, all right guys, that's how we work the old 6 cents Divine Shaky Head and Big Perm to get those big bites and get them in the boat. Now you guys check out a few big fish catches on old Big Perm. Got him! That's a pretty solid dang fish, but you know today, it's just another notch in the belt for old Big Perm. Yep. No big deal. Got him. That sucker absolutely choked old Big Perm there, guys. That's a good one right there. There's a wad of them out there. Big worm right there on the shaky head, that new mag crawler. hashtag big perm in the comments below. Drop it down there. Give them a little ear scratch. Okay, one thing that I didn't show you guys earlier that I meant to is how we rigged this up on the shaky head. It's got a screw lock right there. Gonna get that lined up right in the middle of the head. Line it up right there in the center of the head, and then simply screw it on. I like to get it all the way down real snug to the head of the shaky head there. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to line this worm up on my hook. I'm just going to leave it hanging like this, but I'm going to mark right where it's hanging with my thumb. So I line my hook up right there on the end of the hook point. Now I know where my hook needs to go into the worm. I'm going to simply take the worm, bunch it up, put the hook in the bottom right where my thumb is, go all the way through to the top right there, and that's a perfect distance. We're not bunching the worm up, we're not stretching the worm out. It's going to lay dead straight. Then I'll slide it up to the hook, bunch it up again, skin hook the point right into the worm there, and now I've got it perfectly straight. That worm's going to stand up just like this, just like I want it to, and it's completely weedless, so when I go over log I'm not going to do anything, but when the fish bites it, it pops right out. That's how you rig big perm on a big shaky head. Well, as you can see, we catch some huge fish in the summertime on old big perm. And that big shaky head from 6 cents really helps us put them in the boat in a quick, fast hurry. So we really appreciate you guys watching today. Hey, go out and get some big 6-inch shaky heads. Go out and get you old big perm, the Magnum crawler from SmashTech Custom Baits right there. Get out this summer, catch a bunch of big fish, and we'll see you guys next time right here on your Lake Fork Guide.